Okay, all right. So the first set of data that was sent to me, I want to cover is actually DChecker. And so when we talk about service checker data, we talk about evaluating systems. There are, if you have here, there is the service checker 3, there is DChecker, there is the all-in-one tool, there's the Bluetooth checker, which is the BTSC. Now for this, I want to cover DChecker, not in its entirety, but how we use it to find problems and work through issues on a system and its solutions. So here I have the folder. This is DChecker. It's maybe listed as DChecker 3 only because I have 3 different versions on my laptop. But remember, this is the Bluetooth mobile device, the little hockey puck that plugs into mini splits all the way up to VRV. It records a file that is a .tgz in a folder. Actually, it's a zip folder. That zip folder can be read and offloaded and emailed to somebody, and we import it here under mobile app data right here, F4. What this allows me to do is this actually allows me to pull out any of those .tgzs right here and import them into my program and look at that data. So any data that you record on the Bluetooth device can actually be brought over to a laptop to do exactly what I'm about to do now. So let's jump into it. So here is the information and the data that I have. I'm going to press operational data display, and I'm going to open it up. Now, when I open it up, I can see this is a one-to-one system, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of rearrange myself here and open it up a little bit wider. So you'll notice here in the data viewer, it's one-to-one. Now, I don't have any model numbers, I don't have any location numbers. None of that stuff was put in on the Bluetooth device. However, if I go over to the next page here, which is graph view, it's going to show me all of the data points that were recorded for this system, and it's going to graph them for me. And so I'm going to show you how to use this and what that exactly looks like, and try to go through this in a way that hopefully will help you. So left-hand side, these are the 3 things that I am looking at. Let me just go ahead and highlight them for you right here. These 3 things on my screen in the corner. These are the 3 things that I'm looking at. Down here is my ranges. So let's say like right here, we have a great example. The green line is way off my screen. What is that green line? That green line is high pressure, number 65. So what I can do is I can change, right here I've got 3 options, the range back within the screen. So let's go to the highest one. There we go. Now it's no longer way off the screen. Let me go back to where it was. It's actually brought much lower. So that's how we use that side of the function for DChecker, right? This allows us 3 different viewpoints, right? This is my viewpoint, then this is my viewpoint, and then this is my viewpoint. So I'm bringing it down into a range that I can see. Now, I can't compare it to other things because now that it's in a different range, it can't be compared to anything else. Now, 141 line data line, I can compare it to. So what am I talking about here? So we've got this is what I'm looking at in the top left. This is how I'm displaying it on my graph. This information right here, the 141, the 69, the 65, it's actually referencing the data numbers over here on my right-hand side. So let me show you how to add those to the graph and take them away. So if we go over here and we find a line item that's actually on the graph, you'll notice one thing. It gives it a number and it gives it a color, right? So these are the 2 things that I have currently on my graph. Now, if I want to take them away, I right-click. If I want to add them back, I right-click again. Now, you'll notice this doesn't come off the graph because I have to push this button down here in the bottom left-hand side, which is Apply Changes. So if I take it off and I apply changes, it disappears. Poof, like magic. So let's walk through the issue. Now you know what DChecker looks like. This is the bare bones, that's what I'm trying to say here, of DChecker. This is my indoor unit data down here in the bottom. This is my outdoor unit data. And in those, you'll notice there's a lot more data points for the outdoor unit than there is the indoor unit. So much so that I actually have a scroll function. I can scroll through these points and see what I'm looking at. Now, you can't trust everything you see here because some of this is not applicable to this model in our market. However, most of it is good information. Now, let's get to the complaint. So this data was sent to me from somebody that I know. And they're saying that in heating mode, as it is now, really cold outside, that they're getting random high pressure trips. So much so that they're getting random E3 error codes, high pressure trip, right? We all know that from Daikin's perspective of the service manual, that it takes 3 events within a 60-minute window to trip an error code. So he's getting high pressure in 60 minutes to trip that error code specifically. Now, it's a one-to-one application with a slim ducted unit. There is no air restrictions. The filtration is good. Static pressure is a little bit high, but the unit is operating fairly well, actually. And again, he has no heating issues until the random error codes that he's gotten. It's gotten a lot worse than it was last year. And this year, it's actually pretty bad to the point where he's having to reset it almost every week. Now, he lives in Texas. So in that part there, you guys have experienced some really cold winters here over the past few years. And so let's dive into what the problem is and how we find it. So there's a lot of information here, a lot of information that we could probably funnel out and get rid of and start from scratch. So let's start with a blank slate. We know it's a high pressure error. So let's look at our head pressure, right? That's a great starting point. So I'm going to add head pressure to the chart here. I'm going to make sure that it's within the range that I can see it. Okay, I like that range. Next item. Let's move over to the other thing that we need to understand, which is, the three things that I talk about, right? Suction, superheat, discharge, superheat, subcooling. Now we know this particular issue is a high discharge or high pressure in the system. Sensors have already been checked. All the basic stuff has been checked. Remember, it's a 2-year-old unit. So there's not a whole lot that could go wrong there, but there also could. So let's jump into the next thing, right? I always like to see compressor speed, right? What dictates pressure in the system? What dictates high pressure, right? A compressor speed determines how much pressure we're going to have, right? The faster it runs, the higher the pressure can go. So let's add that to my graph as well. Okay, then the next thing, what I also like to look at is my indoor expansion valve. What am I looking at there? How is it operating? Remember, we're in heating mode, so I need to follow this path of flow. I'm going from my compressor discharge over to my heat exchanger, and that heat exchanger isn't outside, it's inside. So I need to follow that path of flow. Now we have the compressor speeds, we know how fast it's running. We have the head pressure, which is the direct thing that's causing the trip, or at least it's seeing to cause the trip. Now I'm going to go to my next thing, which is my heat exchanger. On my indoor heat exchanger, maybe I want to know the temps, but again, when we talk about analyzing data, it's easy as technicians to say everything matters and plot it all on this graph. And if I go through here, and let me just give you a nice little example here of what I am talking about. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and add a bunch of random stuff to here, and it's going to be like, okay, crap. Well, you see, your problem is, well, that's a lot of squiggly lines and a lot of colors. You're not going to troubleshoot this way. No, this is not how you troubleshoot using DChecker. This is not how you troubleshoot using Service Checker. It's extremely overwhelming, and that doesn't work. It doesn't work. So what do? We follow the flow of refrigerant, and we only populate the necessary information. So again, instead of populating my liquid temp and my gas temp, I can easily see those here in the bottom right-hand side, right here. They're right here. Hey, how's it going, guys? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to then determine what determines head pressure, right? If it's going to my indoor heat exchanger because I'm in heat, what's determining is my head pressure is probably my valve pulses too, and how much back pressure it's going to build up on that expansion valve. Is it opening wide open? Is it going all the way closed? This is important information that I need to know. Remember, in metering devices, it doesn't matter if it's VRF or if it's mini splits or if it's anything to do with that. With expansion valves, they have one job: to meter refrigerant. If it's 100% closed, we're not metering refrigerant. It's 100% open, we're not metering refrigerant. If it's pinched off closed, we are metering refrigerant, but to the point where it can't close anymore, then there's an issue there, right? There's too much liquid refrigerant getting to the backside of that valve. There's too much hot gas getting to the backside of that valve, right? It shouldn't be pinched off to minimum pulses for an extended period of time. That is a problem. And that's what I teach in most of my classes here. So we've got compressor speed, we've got expansion valve pulses, we've got head pressure. So let's update our chart. Let's see these things on our chart. Okay. Oh, I must have accidentally taken off the high pressure. Let's add it back. Okay, here we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Let me change the range for this and see if that helps. It's already a pretty low range, so we'll keep it there. Okay. Then there's this other great thing about DChecker. It allows me to click on the screen anywhere I want to go to look at operational data points. Now, it's not like Service Checker. You're not just going to click your way through it, but I can do differentiating points between two places. I can do a right click here and a left click here. And then if I want to go over and I want to look at the comparison between the two, I can, right? So if I go over here, it's loading really slow, and I want to look at the comparison between the two, I can do it actually here. But I'm not going to do that because this is not a video about this. This gets really confusing really quick. I'm trying to make this quick and simple for you guys. So again, going back to here, I'm going back to my outdoor unit. I'm going back and I'm looking at all the relevant information and anything that might be pertaining to this specifically. All right, so we're going to work our way through here. Actually going to go back over here. Okay. All right. And in that being said, oh, now I've messed with stuff. You've got a wide range of stuff here in this, for this graph view, for this map view that we're working our way through. So in understanding what we're looking at and why we're looking at it, why does it matter? What does it look like? And as you can see here, I'm going to go back here. Okay, so got a little turned around there for a second, and I got it fixed. So, all right, so we know we got the valve pulses, we have discharge pressure, we have compressor speed. Now let's walk our way through this data by clicking to see if anything jumps out at us. And I've already kind of noticed here, there's a great thing here called operation control mode. In operation control mode, I did a YouTube video on it. If you guys haven't seen it yet, there's an operation control mode in DChecker. Because remember, this is a Sky Air product, which is basically a VRV product. And so it says this right here, right, is heating before defrost. Okay, what is heating before defrost? And then we jump in a little bit further here, and then, oh, whoa, okay, we've got a problem. My head pressure is 534 PSI, right? See that green spike here on my screen right here? That is my head pressure. 534.8 PSI is extremely high. That is not a good thing. Not only that, but also you'll notice here, there's a protection trip. The great thing I love about DChecker, although I don't recommend it for VRV with more than 5 to 6 units because it's a little too much on a screen like this, is that it gives you those protection modes activated at the top. I don't have to scroll and look for an on-off. I can just look at the top. Inverter current protection, high pressure protection. 2 protections have just been immediately activated, and that's why, right there, because my head pressure is through the roof. I mean, my discharge temperature is also not the best, but I'm not looking at that. This is a high pressure trip. Now, we would say, okay, why is that? Well, we know now, in this special control mode, this is heating fixed control, and then it goes to heating before defrost. What does the system do with heating before defrost, right? What do we need to defrost an outdoor heat exchanger? We need to build up pressure. We need to build up heat, right? Hot gas temperature needs to be high so that when I shift my 4-way valve over, there's a high pressure differential to shift that valve. It takes 40 PSI G to shift that valve. And also I need to generate as much heat as I can and pressure to then, right, temperature and pressure correlate to defrost the coil outside. So what's happening is as you can see here, my compressor ramps up or is still ramped up, but what does it do on this blue line here, right? Something changes. Well, we know compressor speed stays the same because it's this red line up here and it hasn't changed yet. However, what happened here on this blue line, you can see that it went down. What is my blue line? If I look over here, it's my EEV pulses. So my indoor expansion valve is now throttling back. It used to be at 800 pulses and now it's at 265 pulses. Well, what happens when hot gas is going to a valve and it goes to close 2/3 of what it was already open, right? You get restriction, you get backup, right? So the head pressure goes where? It goes up, right? And now, as I move forward with this data on this next point, I've got 472, right? And then by the time I get right past that point, the compressor goes to slow down. It goes, whoa, wait a problem. We have a problem here. And the trips kick. Now remember, this all depends on how you set it up. It could be every 30 seconds. It could be recorded every 60 seconds. If you're doing every 10 seconds, that's too fast. It's not going to populate data. So, I mean, this number could have actually been 600 PSIG. The system just didn't catch it in the increments that we're recording that data in. However, it's enough to turn this compressor from way up here to all the way down here at the bottom. So it takes the compressor and it goes, whoa, slow it way down. All because my indoor expansion valve went to close to get ready for defrost. And when it did that, the pressure went where? It went up, it spiked. And then my compressor saw an issue, my system saw an issue, and it says, whoa, slow down. Okay, and then we say, okay, what happened right after that point? Well, it went into the notorious restart standby. Restart standby says, hey, I found a problem. I don't know what it is. I'm going to restart. And it restarts and it starts to operate again. And wouldn't you know, you don't have an issue anymore. There isn't any more trips. There isn't any more times where the system actually has an issue, and I can actually zoom out and look at that. But that goes to show me that on this particular set of data, what would cause a trip like this is overcharge, right? So when the valve went to go close down and the compressor staying at the same speed to generate the same amount of heating capacity, just send it outside to defrost the coil, The pressure was too high in throttling that expansion valve for that small amount of 60 seconds before it actually shifts over into defrost, that it tripped on high head pressure. And that's because we see it here in the data. The valve went to go close, pressure shot way up when it shouldn't be that high, compressor ramped down to protect the unit, and then it went into restart standby because of how severe it actually was. And then when it comes out of that, it runs just fine. As we work our way through the graph, there's a few other spots where kind of maintains, but you can see it's not an issue anymore as the day warms up outside and defrost is no longer needed. Now, again, this is a very small window in which we found this issue because he recorded just enough data with it operating this way to see the exact issue. Now, the system isn't drastically overcharged. It's overcharged enough to that when he sees those outdoor ambient temperatures spike low enough and it goes into defrost, it's the perfect storm to trip high pressure when it goes right before defrost, right? The system is doing something right before defrost. Now, this could be 8 ounces, this could be 12 ounces of overcharge, but it's just enough that he only has an issue when it's extremely cold outside. Outside of that, it doesn't operate the way that it would in those low ambient conditions to have that defrost at a constant to where he would hit something like this. So this is a very specific issue that, again, we see valve pulses go to close. That has an immediate effect on the head pressure skyrocketing and compressor eventually just shutting down altogether to go into restart standby and restart the system altogether. Right? This unit should not be getting head pressure that high just by throttling an expansion valve. Now, it should climb up to get ready for defrost. However, it should not skyrocket to the moon to where it's going to trip an error code like this. So again, this is a small overcharge scenario that actually would cause intermittent error codes like this to where you wouldn't know where to go or what to look at next, right? This unit ran for 2 years. I had no problem. In the summertime, it's great. Again, this is that, going off of superheat or subcool or operational data as opposed to actually measuring the liquid line length and going through the installation manual to find out what those charges are. And now I've even found in those installation manuals of that specific charge amount, those have even been off in certain applications, right? This all comes down to airflow. This comes down to application, system selection, load sizing, occupancy, ambient conditions. All of those things play a factor in how the charge affects the system and the system's operation. Just because you've installed 100 Sky Airs and you've never had this specific issue doesn't mean that this system isn't overcharged, right? The data doesn't lie. And that's what I tell people. When we're looking at something like this, this is a very, very small issue that, again, in the perfect conditions becomes a problem to the point where it turns off and it restarts. Now, again, he recorded this for a decent amount of time and he never got an error code. But we see here in the data that it did exactly what it was doing before that would have caused an error code had it done it 3 times in a row in that 60-minute window. Now, every piece of equipment is different. I'll obviously reference the service manual to find out what that is and what those windows are in which it trips. But again, when we're troubleshooting complex systems like this, when we're troubleshooting operational data where you can have the spaghetti mess on the screen, it's important to remember to take one thing at a time and think about the process flow of refrigeration. Think about where is my refrigerant going and what is it doing, right? I look like I'm forecasting the weather over here with spaghetti models for the latest hurricane impacts here in the state of Florida. It's overwhelming. And so as technicians, we have to peel that onion back very slowly or there will be a lot of tears. Sometimes there's tears anyways, but that's just how that cookie crumbles, right? So when we're talking about systems like this and complexity, refrigeration cycle is very basic. And so we always follow the flow of refrigerant. And I love to start at the compressor because the compressor tells you a lot. There's that suction superheat, that discharge superheat, and that subcooling, which we didn't even get into on this data set because I'm trying to keep this video somewhat short. But again, this is how you find those problems. You think about what information do I need in that process? There's the compressor, right? So we talk discharge temp, compressor speed, then there's head pressure. That's right after that. That's where the sensor's at. What is that? What is my saturation temperature? What is my head pressure? Okay, move further. Where is it going? Is it going outside? Is it going inside? It's going inside. Okay, heat exchanger pulses, temperature, in, out. Okay, and I follow that. And now once I get at least 3 to 5 things that can give me a good picture, I look at it throughout the entire data set from front to back. Start here and work my way nice and slowly through it and see if I find anything crazy, right? 280 degree discharge temp. Well, that's a big problem. Maybe I should look at that a little bit more closely. Why is that? What is my suction superheat? Is it getting enough vapor? What is my discharge superheat? Is there enough oil in the compressor? Things that I cover in other videos. Gets all the way to the point where, we find out exactly what we should be looking at over time and looking at those changes. And again, once I get through those 6 line items and those 6 things, then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to move to the next process. Where does it go after it leaves the indoor heat exchanger? Well, guess what? It comes back outside on the liquid line. What is my liquid line temp, right? What is my as it comes to there, what is my subcooling valve doing, right? That's the next step that goes through there, right? Maybe this unit doesn't have a subcooler. Okay, I skip that step. I go to the next set of data. Okay, what's going through my liquid line? It's going to another expansion valve for my outdoor heat exchanger that's now an evaporator. Okay, what are those valve pulses? What is my temperature before and after that valve, right? There's another 5 things. Go through that through the entire data set. And if I don't have anything there yet, nothing has triggered my brain to say that's a problem, and I'll just move on to the next. Then we have leaving the heat exchanger, right? Now it's suction, right? What's my suction temp? What's my entering compressor temp? And guess what? We've made it back to the outdoor compressor again, and we can start this process over again. But I can guarantee you somewhere along the way, you're going to find something in one of those things out of the 5 or the 4 and break it down to 3. If I look at one thing, that's not going to help me. Right? I need to look at multiple things that I can compare to each other to say, from here to here, it's good. Okay. What's the next thing? From here to here, it's good. Okay. What's my next thing? From here to here, oh man, that's not good at all. And here's why. Okay. You know what? To really get a clear picture of these 2 things and why there's a problem, let me add this thing and then this thing. Oh, and there's all this other thing over here. Okay. Now let me look at these together in that spot that I found a problem. The problem is very clear. This system is overcharged. And that's how we form a solid diagnostics or diagnosis for something like this in a program such as DChecker. Now, again, you guys like data analysis, and I'm trying to get more of these videos out there. So if you have any information that you'd like to see on top of this, add a comment, give me a message, reach out to me, and I will try to put some more videos out there. And hey, send me some data. You might be one of those people that I do a feature video on to walk through stuff like this. So hopefully this video was helpful for you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.